Hello, everybody. It is such a pleasure to be able to introduce my guest today, who I feel like I already really know as I have read his upcoming book. And it's called Are You There, Spirit? It's me, Travis. So definitely recommend. I blew through this in like 2 days. And so, yeah, I know a lot about you. And it's just so fun to be here with you. And I'm honored that you were willing to do this and that you want to connect. And I just think you have such an interesting story. And the thing I really want to say, and then I'll let you talk, is, when I first found you on Instagram, people are put in front of you all the time. And I try to do kind of two things with that. I try to use some discernment. I'm like, okay, this is for me, this isn't. But immediately with you, you have this energy of safety and home. And I don't know how many people have told you that. I'm sure I'm not the first, but it was just there through social media, and it's there on an even more deep level within your book. And so you just have this love and warmth and authenticity. And I'm so excited to learn from you today and for you to share your wisdom with others.
Oh, Nicole, thank you so much. Those words are so kind, and I deeply appreciate them. So thank you.
Yes, absolutely. So like I said, I kind of feel like I just read your whole life. I know there's more to it than that, but for people who want to get to know you, because ultimately that's really what this show is about. You're always out there teaching on Instagram and you're doing your tour and all the work that you do, but getting to know you on a deeper level is what this is ultimately about. So I'd love to start just by having you describe what it is that you do.
Yeah. So, putting what I do into words, it's always challenging to quantify, but I'll do my best. So the very short version of how I show up in the world and how I serve, I'm what we would call a medium, which is simply just a bridge between this world and the next. Do you want to hear something crazy?
Yes.
My name, Travis, means someone who stands at a crossing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I just pieced that together like 3 weeks ago. And I texted my
Wow.
mom and I was like, did you know that? And she was like, no, actually, I named you after Travis and Old Geller. And I was like, you mean like the kid who like shot his dog? Like, what are you? So, so that's in short, I help people connect, whether it's to themselves, whether it's to the unseen energy, whether that's to our departed loved ones or guides. And I am on a mission to help people connect not only to that external energy, but also the energy that's within that spark that we all have.
Yes, I absolutely love that. And I would love to dive into your background a little bit. I know, as these gifts were coming online for you as a child, you had some mixed support from family across different areas of your life. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about, kind of what your childhood looked like with all of this.
Yeah. So I grew up with two really hardworking parents. My parents owned a restaurant. My grandfather, who I write about in the book, another fun synchronicity. We were talking about synchronicities before we started recording. My book actually comes out on the day that my papaw departed, and I wrote about him in this book. And that wasn't planned. That was just the publisher picked the date and all of that. My grandfather certainly didn't pick to pass away this time last year on that day,
Right.
but so it's a really beautiful synchronicity with the story. But my family owned restaurants, and so I grew up in the service industry, and I had this wonderful granny on my dad's side, and we would use the Ouija board to divinate and connect with our loved ones. And when you're growing up as a medium or somebody who just connects into energy, it all feels very natural and normal. It doesn't feel weird. Kind of like me growing up being gay. Spoiler alert, I'm gay if anyone couldn't hear my accent. But it was kind of like being gay, though. I didn't know I was different until somebody told me I was different. You just kind of grow up with that as yourself. So, people ask me, when was the moment that you knew that you could connect to this energy or you could feel it? And there wasn't one defining moment. It was a series of events that I look back on now and I'm like, oh, that's what that was. Just like being gay. I'm like, oh, me holding my family hostage during Thanksgiving dinner and making them watch me choreograph Britney Spears dances. The math is starting to math now.
I love it. I love it. So yeah. And so your grandmother was obviously very supportive. You talk in your book a little bit about how, other family members had a little bit more resistance. So,
Yeah.
But ultimately you ended up doing this, being a medium. So how did you navigate that whole experience? What was it like for you as a child, knowing you have these gifts, but also knowing it's not really maybe 100% acceptable?
Yeah. So I tried coming out to my parents like several times, both as a gay person and as somebody who experiences energy in the way that I do. And, when I was growing up, I showed classic signs of depression, anxiety, ADHD, tried medication, therapy, the whole route. And, for me, those things were manifesting because I have this ability to connect. I believe that depression, ADHD, and all those things are very real. For me and how it was showing up, it was a symptom of something else. And, and so when I was trying to share with my parents what I was feeling, what I was going through, the very first natural thing that a Christian household in Midwest Ohio goes to is, oh God, he's talking to demons. That's like the thing that we're going to. That is just, but same thing with me being gay. There's a lot of parallels in those two things for me.
Yeah.
Because both of them have to deal with a deeper sense of my identity. And so when I was coming out, I kind of had like to choose which one I was going to really like lean into with my parents. And it was like, Mom, Dad, I'm seeing someone. And by the way, he's right behind you and he's dressed in colonial garb. You know what I mean? I couldn't do that. So I had to be like, really had to be more of like, hey, Mom and Dad, I'm gay. And then the feeling energy, that part of me that felt so magical and so vibrant, I had to tuck away and hide it because there was only really, one at that time in my mind, one battle I was kind of willing to go through with them. And that was the one I chose.
Yeah. And you talk in your book a lot about authenticity, right? And so it's not surprising that you would have symptoms of depression, anxiety, and things like that when you're not able to live in that fullest expression of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're suppressing those things. And again, I think those things are very real. And I'm not anti-medication. I'm not anti-therapy. I've got 2 therapists and a witch that reads my tarot. Like I'm all for taking care of yourself, however you need to do it. But for me, those things were manifesting because I wasn't sharing something that I was meant to share with people.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely empathize with that. So, when you were a kid and you were realizing, or when you think back to these things that were happening for you that maybe you thought happened to everyone, but then later realized you didn't, like, what was that like? So you were seeing spirits, what were those manifestations of that gift?
Yeah. So for me, it was really like I hear really well. I feel mostly. When I see, it's more of like shadows or outlines or like little kind of like sparkles or lights. And I see out of the right side of my vision, and so when I was growing up, I had a lot of imaginary friends, very creative. My mom will now, like looking back, and my parents are great now. Like they are so on board with what I do and, with everything in my life. And they're so proud. And I'm proud of them because they've done a lot of growing in, the past 20 something years since I came out as a gay person. But my mom will now tell stories and she'll be like, oh my God, it makes so much sense. You'd be in your room, like talking to yourself. And I just thought you had imaginary friends. And here you were talking to, God knows what. So, so it's like those things start to add up for my family when they look back.
Yeah.
And they're like, how did we not see this? Or how did maybe they just didn't want to, who knows? So for me, I sense that's my strongest of the clairs is the feeling. And then hearing would be second. But like I walk into a space and I can feel it. I'm in a hotel right now in Greenville, South Carolina. I have a show tonight. And, the hotel that I'm in, it's a newer building. It was built in the 80s. It's not like some old historic building. But when I tell you my dreams have been crazy here, and And I can feel things. And when I walked in the building, I could feel things. And so I'm going to do some digging on the history of this hotel, but it's always been like that for me, even since I was a kid. I've always had incredibly vivid dreams. When I envision things, I can see like 3-dimensional shapes and colors. And I didn't know not everybody could do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I kind of wish I had that ability. Was it ever scary for you, like as a kid or even now?
Not scary, just intense.
Mm-hmm.
It will just get intense. And it's not that it doesn't scare me. I'm not afraid. Now, you won't catch me doing like a paranormal ghost hunter thing either, though.
Right.
You ain't gonna catch me doing that.
Yeah, I feel
like
that.
I'm not doing a paranormal ghost hunting while I'm here in this hotel. I'm gonna just be, asking some questions, just validating my own dreams that I'm having, because I like to validate my experiences. But no, I shan't be doing that. I'm not afraid of it, but I believe in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would imagine, from the time you were a child to now, have those gifts gotten stronger or just more clear what it all means, or how has it evolved?
Yeah, there's more direction with it now, because I think when we're kids and we're just so open,
right,
we're getting hit left and right with energy. Even as an adult, when I was leaning into this and I was opening myself back up, I was getting hit with all kinds of things. And so I had to learn how to channel it so I didn't fry my energy, because you can do that. One of my favorite authors who wrote The Artist's Way, Julia Cameron, she rephrases God as good, orderly direction. And so that's how I like to think of my journey with this energy, is giving it direction to flow and how to work with it and knowing what I'm working with. And so for me and my journey, it's just been more so of a refining and what I'm willing to work with, what I'm not willing to work with, how I like to show up and do this work, and being really clear with that with the universe.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And, within yourself, right? Put other people aside. Did you ever face, skepticism or resistance? And you're like, am I just making all this up? Like, what is going on?
Oh, honey, if you scroll back in the TikTok, honey, you go back 5 years, you'll find videos of me reading tarot on TikTok being like, I'm not a psychic, but here's a reading for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like my first couple of readings that I did when I decided to open myself up and start doing readings, I was just reading cards. And I was adamant. I was like, I'm not talking to dead people. That freaks me out. But then it happened. And when it happened, it wasn't scary. I write about a moment where it first happened in the book. And I thought that connecting with the departed and those souls that are no longer here in a physical body, I thought that was going to be scary and awful, but it was the thing that made me feel complete within myself for the very first time. It was like everything in the universe just made sense. And I wasn't searching outside of myself for answers. I wasn't searching outside of myself for my worth, I should say, because I did go looking for a sign, which I write about in the book, but I wasn't searching for proof of my worthiness in that moment.
Yeah.
It's funny.
You mentioned that because I literally had a note about that moment that you talk about feeling complete for the first time you gave someone a message from spirit. So it's so beautiful when you have that kind of full circle moment. You're like, okay, everything else in my life up to this date actually makes sense now. So I love that. And obviously, you're kind of talking about refining yourself and your gifts as you've grown through this process. How did you learn to work with spirit so that you can tune in anywhere under any circumstances, whether it's on a stage or, on social media or on a reading?
Yeah. So I think here's the thing. I have a pretty solid discipline practice with meditation and knowing when my energy is feeling it and when I'm not. Because the thing is like, it's not this. I think that's the thing that sometimes is misunderstood. I don't have spirit on tap. I pray so hard before I go on stage where I'm like, Lord, don't let this be the night where nobody says anything to me, and that's not true. Like someone has always shown up to talk at an event. So it's like, it always comes through. But when I feel very lucky when I first started this journey, the right mentors, I found them and they found me. I feel so blessed. And that is not a common thing to just have mentors just literally fall in your lap.
Yeah.
I think I was really open to it. I was really receptive to it, because for me, tapping into this was like tapping into me at 6 years old again, where there was no doubt, just wonder and excitement and wanting to learn and wanting to serve. And so I feel very lucky. I had great mentors. I've had various mentors throughout the past 5 years that have just really been great at meeting me where I was. But one of my very first mentors, I think, gave me some of the best advice that I've ever been given, and was like, the only thing you need to remember is to get out of your own way, and everything else will make sense. And at the time I was like, what does that even mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And now I totally know what that means.
Yeah, absolutely. Does it mean like just not questioning things? Like, what does it actually mean for you?
No, I think it's the opposite. I think it means question everything.
Okay.
I think being curious in this work is so important. And I think there's a difference between curiosity and just being in the way.
Yeah.
Curiosity says, I want this door to open and be open, and I want to flow with this energy. Being in your own way is putting those stories that we tell ourselves of like, I'm not good enough to do this, or I'm not worthy of this, or I can't do this, or this isn't possible for me. And so for me, this has been a journey of allowing myself to receive, allowing myself to stay curious, to question. And that has served me so well. And that advice has served me throughout the last 5 years that I've been doing this work.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. You know, my background is not in this world. I ran a big business coaching company. I sold it a few years ago. I've taken some time off, and then, but I've always been really interested in spiritual work. And it's funny because I have invested so much time, energy, and money into learning and growing in this arena. And I've worked with one mentor consistently for years and spoke with many other people. And it's like, I'm like 80 to 90% there in my belief, but also like 10 to 20% skeptic, right? I think a lot of it is because I want things that perhaps our human mind can't make sense of to make sense to me. But I really created this show for people like me, who are really looking to solidify their beliefs, who are looking to have questions answered, and who can really benefit through learning someone else's story, just like yours. And I think, I listen to people, or previously, I think I'm getting better at it, but I would listen to people like you and be like, well, I don't have any of those gifts. Like I can't tap into any of this. So I'm not very spiritual. Like I don't know what I'm doing, So for people like me, I don't know if you have any just words of wisdom based on your own experience growing within yourself or with other people that you've worked with.
Totally. Whenever I hear somebody go, I'm not spiritual, or think that they're not, the response I give every time is, of course you're spiritual, because you are a spirit.
Yeah.
If you believe in energy, if you believe that everything is energy, congratulations.
We're there.
Congratulations, we're there. And that's all you need to believe.
Yeah.
The only thing that you need to believe is that everything in this universe is energy, which we know. We've proved, like science has proven it, quantum physics has proven it, like it's been proven. We got it, right?
Yeah.
That's the only thing you need to believe. I used to think that doubt was like my enemy, or that it was the thing that was blocking me. And thanks to years of working with a really good therapist, we're going on 6 years this year.
Amazing.
So, but doubt is actually the thing. I love when doubt comes up now, because it means I'm going to get closer to a deeper layer of belief. Like doubt is just that time where I'm ready to work through something to really hone in on why I believe in what I believe and what that means for me.
Yeah. That's like, perspective is everything, right? Because if you're using it as an opportunity to actually deepen your belief versus like question everything, that's a good shift for me, actually. It's
just like our challenges or our, resistance that comes up in life. I mean, you were a coach for a long time. That's just an opportunity for growth. That's all it is. And we're meant to experience doubt. We are not meant to live a spiritual life and just believe everything that we hear. We are meant to question. And if you're working with somebody who tells you not to question or just blindly believe, you need to get the hell away from that teacher or that mentor. Like, you need to be questioning. You need to be asking why we feel the things that we feel.
Yeah.
That's a part of our growth.
Totally. Yeah, that's fantastic advice. And you mentioned earlier, it's kind of along the same lines, just the process of validating your work and the messages you receive. What does that actually entail for you?
So for me in my work, I'm what would be called an evidential medium,
Yes.
which is simply just when I'm working with the essence of the spirit, I'm getting as much objective evidence from the spirit as I possibly can before I go delivering messages. So what that would look like would be like, the relationship of the person, how they passed, things like names or dates. I don't get to choose what evidence spirit gives me. I was doing a live show the other evening and I'm looking at a woman and I was like, your departed loved one keeps showing me Milky Ways. And she like pulls a Milky Way out of her purse. And she was like, my husband threw this in my bag before I left because I'm diabetic and he was afraid that I would like not have sugar. How does that happen? You know what I mean? It's like those things that like, so I try to work as objectively as I possibly can when I'm doing mediumship and then delivering those messages. And that's important for me because I think in this field, it's not regulated. Anyone can come in and say, I have a woman here and she loves you and she's proud of you. And I can think of like 5 people off the top of my head, women that I've loved that have departed that are probably love me and are proud of me. So that's how I like to work when I'm in service or when I'm giving readings or when I'm doing a live event or a live show. And so for me, that's important because, the work that I do is not to convince people that mediums are real. The work that I do is to share the continuation of consciousness.
Yeah. That's
that
beautiful.
we don't leave a physical body or that when we leave our physical body, that we're not dying. Death is just a doorway.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to help people be a little less afraid of death.
Yeah, that's amazing. I feel like, I was not raised with any religious or spiritual framework. It wasn't even something in my awareness until I was probably in my 20s and then still not really until my 30s. I feel like I've only had one direct interaction, with kind of like a departed loved one. It was actually during my very first ever Reiki session. My grandmother, who had passed a few years before, I saw her very vividly, like kind of in her prime. She was like kind of a pretty amazing advanced woman. And she was like, loved hosting parties at her home. And so she kind of came to me there and I don't know why then and there. But I hadn't really grieved her, even though I was extremely close to her because she had dementia. And so she was gone long before she actually departed. And it was like, okay, this is probably better for her in a way. But yeah, it was just, that was the one time I've ever like felt like I've really seen spirit in a way. And it actually was emotional for me. And it allowed me to kind of grieve in that moment in a way for her that I hadn't, despite being close to her for the majority of my life. So I don't know, I guess people like me, normal people can have those moments from time to time.
We all can. The thing is that everybody can connect to their own departed loved ones because we are a spirit.
Yeah.
Therefore, we can connect to other spirits. Now, I say that like everyone can sing. Like you could do it for your own enjoyment. Not everybody needs to go do it professionally, right? Like I can do a karaoke night. That is the extent of my singing career, right? Yeah. But I think we can learn and we can connect. There's been so many studies that have been done by brilliant therapists and neuroscientists. I had my brain scanned with an EEG cap by this amazing therapist or psychologist and doctor. His name is Dr. Jeffrey Tarrant. Okay. And he was actually featured on the Telepathy Tapes podcast.
Love. I'm obsessed.
Love. He was most notably in season 2, episode 2, where they dive into mediums.
That's the one I'm about to start listening to.
Okay, so perfect. So you're going to love this. So I did some work with him. We did an EEG scan of my brain. And of course, like, I'm curious. I'm always going to ask all the questions, not because I'm questioning somebody, because I genuinely want to know. And I asked him, I was like, do you think people are born with this, or do you think that this can be learned? And it's both. And I think people can learn how to connect to their own departed loved ones. As a medium, I'm just able to connect to other people's, but I don't have resistance that other people would have around their own loved ones. I don't have the same grief that they have. I don't have the same the same kind of things, right? Like, that's why, like, I still go see a psychic.
Mm-hmm.
Can I get the answers for myself? Yeah. Am I going to listen to myself? I don't know. Maybe I'm learning. I'm growing. I don't have it all figured out. I'm still learning.
Yeah.
And then something else that I'm a part of is called the Forever Family Foundation, which they rigorously test mediums.
Mm-hmm.
And they're a foundation that's been around for over 20 years. They believe in researching the continuation of life after it leaves the physical body, or after the energy leaves the physical body. The continuation of consciousness, more succinct way to say that. Thanks, Travis. But they rigorously test mediums. They certify maybe one medium a year, and they've been doing this for 20-ish years.
Mm-hmm.
And I just got certified with them this year as one of their mediums. And so I think for people that are skeptical or having a hard time believing, there is quantifiable evidence that consciousness exists outside of the body. And I think, kind of going back to what we were saying earlier, I think if you can grasp that our consciousness can exist in some way, then you're on the right path.
Yeah.
You're on the path of having more and more of those connections.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't see how that's not the more probable outcome, or yeah, I 100% agree. And, I think the reason I feel so connected to you is, especially after reading your book, there's just so many things that we share that, even though I have worked in completely different fields from you, but these lessons of trust and surrender, because you talk about them at various places in your book. Do you mind if I read a quote from your book, and then I have like a little follow-up question on it? Okay,
please.
It's a little long, but I'm gonna read the whole thing because I think it's important. So it says, "Surrender is one of the hardest lessons Spirit has ever asked me to learn. It's easy to trust when everything is going the way we want, when signs are showing up, when opportunities are flowing, and when life feels like it's working in our favor. But real trust happens in the moments when nothing makes sense, when doors close, when plans fall apart, when fear creeps in and tells us we should turn back." What can you share based on your own experiences with people who are listening and who are facing those moments of needing to trust and surrender? Like, are there signs, or is it like, nope, you just got to trust?
It's a lesson, I think, that I will continue learning, Nicole, and it shows up for me in so many different ways. Recently, I had some recent like reshuffling, we'll call it, on my team, on the very small but mighty team that is Team Travis.
There, yes.
And it happens, right? Like it sucks when it happens, but you got to go with it. And I'm a big believer in signs. I'm a big believer in allowing the signs, not as a means of looking for external validation, because I think we can get really caught up in the I need the sign in order to know it's going to be okay.
Right.
I think the signs just validate for us what we're thinking, what we're feeling in the path that we're on, but it's not necessarily the thing that's deciding it, right? Like, just because you see 111 on a license plate, like that's not like, the thing that's letting you know, like, everything's working out. It's just validation that the actions and the steps that you're taking are the right steps.
Yeah.
And so, for me, I love being open to the signs. I love letting them kind of be my little reminders that things are working out. Surrender has been this lesson that has changed for me over the years. At first, when I heard the word surrender, I just thought that means like I throw my hands up and I give up. And that's it. Like, I'm not doing anything. That's it. Surrender for me now, as it's evolved for me, means if I get an inspired action or a thought or something that comes when I'm in a place of rest or stillness, to trust it, to implement it, to do what feels aligned, and trust that the universe is going to show up and meet me.
Yes, I agree. I think that action is always the counterbalance to surrender, right? It's not just like, woo, take me wherever you want. It's like we do have to do the work and we have to do our part.
Yeah, we have to. And then I think when you're living from that space, the signs and synchronicities are just like those little thumbs up. It's just like the yep. Things aren't going to be okay because the sign showed up. Things are okay And the signs are just kind of validating for you. It's kind of like when you're on a walking trail and you have the signs that go,
Yeah,
keep going
yeah.
this way for this, or keep. So for me, the signs are just kind of like that reminder of I'm living in the energy I need to be living in right now.
Yeah, totally. And, you talk so much again in the book about synchronicities, right? And how spirit's always communicating with us in really subtle ways. One thing I've kind of come to recognize in myself, and again, I'm like, I don't know if it's right or wrong. I always want to know that, but I'm just going to like learn to trust stuff. So I don't remember when it started happening to me, but it was a couple of years ago. I would, when having my eyes closed, see like it's almost like flashing light, but like in like a piece of like a moth wing or a butterfly wing. And I've kind of
Mm-hmm.
come to understand that as guides just saying like, it's going to be okay. Cause it only happens to me when I'm really worried or stressed about something. And it's not something I can recreate because I've tried 100 times. I'm
Right.
like, I can't recreate this light, but I'm also, again, I'm like, okay, am I making this up? And then also I'm like, you must get so many signs around you, and it be obvious for you. So anyway, my point is like, again, for more people like me who want
Yeah.
this like big glaring thing, how can we start to really recognize those subtle things and synchronicities?
So you're inspiring a story, and you talked about moths, and I have to bring this up now
Okay.
because it's like I have to. So listen, sometimes I need to be hit over the head by the universal 2 by
Same.
4.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do. I'm still human. What I find is if we appreciate the little signs that we get,
Hmm.
whether it's the one-on-one on a license plate or whatever it is, and we just go, thank you.
Hmm.
The signs get bigger.
Yeah.
But if we don't appreciate the little ones, we might not get the big ones, or we may not notice the big ones, right? But I will tell you this story. So there was this day where like it was the day that like some reshuffling on my team started happening. I was really upset. It was like wrecking my nervous system. I was having like a full blown like crying, dry heaving kind of moment.
Yeah.
And so I get back to my hotel. I was traveling, and I'm like regulating my nervous system again. And I just thought to myself, I was like, I know that this is necessary change.
Mm.
I know that this is necessary change. Thank you, universe, for any validation you provide that this change is aligned.
Hmm.
So again, I'm not like hinging. I'm not like, universe, you need to tell me if this is.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just thanks for any validation that you give me. I go to open my toothbrush case. I have one of those like UV light, UV protector toothbrush cases because I travel a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have the ADHD. So I don't like reshuffling all my stuff. I have my travel bag that stays packed. And so I go to open up my travel toothbrush case. I have not opened this toothbrush case in probably a week and a half. This was my first trip of a series of trips in a week and a half. I open up my toothbrush case. Do you know what comes out of my toothbrush case? A giant moth, which is a sign of change.
Okay.
Which is a sign of change and rebirth.
Wow.
Moths are wonderful signs.
Okay.
And so it flies out of my toothbrush case.
That's crazy.
And I was like sitting there, I was like, what is happening right now? But I still get those signs. And sometimes we receive signs and we don't recognize them as signs, which is like the even trickier thing. I had a client who I was reading for, and her dad had departed. And, I'm going through the details of his departure. We're having this reading, everything's flowing. And I was like, your dad keeps showing me, deer. How do you understand deer? Because sometimes I can figure it out. Sometimes I just receive it and it's just meant for me to share it.
Right.
And then the client figure it out, right? So I'm like, he keeps showing me deer. How do you understand deer? And she goes, well, I don't really connect deer with my dad. I connect something else. And it was like blue jays or something. And I was like, okay, well, your dad keeps showing me a deer and he's putting this deer head like right in front of my face. And she goes, well, you know what's crazy? And I was like, listen, I am in my late 30s. I am out here dating in this world. And I talk to dead people. Nothing sounds crazy to me, like nothing. And so she goes, what sounds crazy is I was sitting in my car, and we've had more deer in our yard this week. And I'm sitting in my car and I turn and look, and there is just a deer that came up to my window and was staring at me. Giant deer head right in front of her face. And so sometimes I think what happens is we get the sign or we get the nudge from the universe and we dismiss it or we ignore it because that doubt or that skeptical part of our brain kind of kicks in and dismisses it. And it's so important when that happens, even if you think it's a sign, just to say, thank you so much for the validation and confirmation.
Yeah. And do you think that everything is intentional? That like,
Yes.
okay, so like for example, I was hiking. I hike with my dog all the time, but
Yeah.
we've had a lot of rain here lately, and so we were just kind of walking. There's like a greenway near my house, and I live on a very busy street, like in the city, and I see deer. This is an example out here fairly often. I'm like, I don't know where they live. We're in a city, but this whole like 6 deer just like come across the road, like right next to me. I can hear their feet, and they just stop and they look. And I love deer. I don't understand how anyone wants to hurt them, but I'm like looking at these deer, and it just, every time I experience something like that, I'm like, it just feels like such a special experience. But I'm like, deer cross roads all the time. Like,
Yep,
what is this meant for?
They do. Deer crossroads all the time. Lots of people have angel number license plates. Butterflies migrate throughout the year. Yes, of course, all of these things happen. But if you think about it, so for me, for example, I love angel number license plates. And my guides and my team know that like it just brings me such joy, and I don't have any resistance around them. So I see them all of the time. And my friends will notice, like when they're with me, they're like, I never see this many. And what is all of this that's happening right now? This morning, I was parked right in between 2 cars with angel number license plates, which for anyone listening or watching, angel number license plates, they have like the 444, the 333, or the 222, the repeating numbers. And yeah, those cars are on the road. The universe didn't just magically make that car appear for me. But here's what happened. I had to get up at a certain time. I had to have the thought or the impulse to go to the gym or the grocery store, wherever I was going. Had to have the thought that I was having in that moment to then converge with those things that are special signs to me.
Yeah, true.
Deers are magical and wonderful for you. I would say if you see a sign or you connect with something, ask yourself, what was I thinking when I saw that? Or what was the thought that I was having? Was I in resistance? Maybe it was the universe telling me to, hey, lighten up. Or was I having like this thought of like, what do I do next? You know, and I think for me and kind of like this journey and integrating this into my life, I mean, we live in a very intentional universe. Everything is done with intention.
Yeah.
And I don't believe in coincidences. I believe in synchronicities. I believe that everything lines up the way that it needs to. Now I'm having a really good day today. So you're catching me on
of course,
on those days that I need to surrender. Sometimes that belief feels a little further away.
Yeah.
But because of my spiritual practices, I can get to those thoughts a little bit easier when I am needing to surrender.
Yeah. And I think I appreciate you saying that, because it's important for people who are like, oh my gosh, he's a medium, he's so spiritual. Like he doesn't get it, just to know that there is like a little bit of waver in you, or like you have to still work on this stuff. And it's not just, every part of who you are.
I wake up every single day almost like at like a baseline again. So like I was just talking to my therapist about this week. I do these live shows. I love them. They give me so much energy. Afterwards, I'm like, I feel so creative. I'll come back to my hotel and like I'll write or I'll come up with something. But then I wake up the next day and it's like I drained the tank.
Yeah.
And then I wake up the next day and it's like, my alarm's going off at 5. Maybe I'm resetting it for 6:30. I know I need to go to the gym. I know I need to eat. And then it's kind of like working myself back into that space. One of my favorite spiritual teachers who I quote a lot in the book is Abraham Hicks. And Abraham Hicks talks about alignment. And alignment is simply just that. We're in that place of peace. We're in that place of knowing, in that place of confidence. That's what alignment is, when we're in that place with our energy. But it's not a college degree. We will be in alignment and then we'll be knocked out of it because things are going to happen. We're going to see something on the news that upsets us, or we're going to have a conversation with a friend. Maybe it doesn't go well. We're going to have a day at work. And so for me, being spiritual doesn't mean that I sit on this hill and I have all of these answers. And, for me, it just means I have practices and tools that help me get to that place of connection.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so much work, isn't it? Like all this stuff.
Well, it is. And it's not like it's a part of it.
Yeah.
I think something that sounds simple, and I know what I'm saying sounds really simple. I don't think simple always equates to easy.
Oh, I agree.
And I think it's like, it's so different than if you're like a business owner or if you're, no matter what you're doing, there's going to be this level that you want to calibrate yourself to. That's like an ideal space for you to hang out in and be in, and an ideal energy for you to flow from. But I think for me, surrender has been on this journey of like, some days I'm not there.
Yeah.
Some days I am not there. And maybe that's the day that I need to reschedule some things. Or maybe that's the day where it's like, you know what? I'm just going to like meditate and chill for a bit. And I'm going to allow myself to get back there, give myself that grace to get there.
Yeah. Well, you're amazingly spiritual and you're also human at the same time. Comes with the territory, I think. So going back to like, so these deer, do you think ever it's just kind of like spirit or the universe just being like, hi, love ya? Like, can it just be like nice things just for whatever reason?
I think that's what it is all the time, Nicole.
Okay.
I think all of the time.
Yeah.
I think we can give something meaning. Like, so like for me, I have certain things that I've just worked with my guides that for me has specific meaning. But for the most part, I think a lot of it is just, hey, you're doing a good job. I think it's just a hello.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love that. Yeah. That makes it a lot easier to kind of like recognize and be like, okay, I see you too, versus like, what does this mean? And like, I have to go down this whole rabbit hole of trying to figure it out.
And like, let's just say that the signs were really just the universe just being like, hey, I thought you'd like this. I thought that this would be fun for you to see. It's so funny how we're so quick to be like, that's not that special.
Yeah.
I want it to mean this, or like, that it needs to be, I need to take this job, or that I need to do this. And like, and it might be those things, but how magical is it that we live in this universe that we're so deeply connected to that like, it just wants to say hi. Like, I think that's really cool. I think that's so magical. And I think that's what we do is we kind of dismiss the magic. And when we do that, and we keep doing that, then we just shut ourselves off from seeing the signs or synchronicities.
Yeah. And actually, you're doing such a good job of leading me into like my next thought or question.
I must be psychic.
I know, right? Well, I want to talk about the other side of the magic. This is something I've brought up in a number of my conversations, and I think I'll continue to because it's been such a point of contention for me to resolve in my own spiritual work and beliefs. So I've mentioned this already in different episodes, but I've always been kind of interested in the darker side of humanity. And in fact, I was a high school English teacher. That was my first job.
Bless you.
Quit that in 2007. So it's been a while. But when I was doing that, and in college as well, I took classes on Holocaust literature. And it was something that I taught a lot and felt really connected to. And so I went and got a master's degree in Holocaust and genocide studies. I never actually did that work. Oddly enough, it led me to where we are today. Long story short, but once I was making a lot of money in my business, I started working with a charity that supports blood diamond victims in Sierra Leone. So I went there, I volunteered, I gave a lot for a long time there, and I toured concentration camps in Europe, and I went and did a research study on the Cambodian genocide. And so I've seen, and obviously we can see on the news horrible things happening around the world all the time, and you do address this in your book. But I've really wrestled with watching the unfairness and injustice and suffering and being able to reconcile how unfair it all is and how so lucky I am to be born where I was and who I am. So what I've received, and it was actually doing a little bit of work with psychedelics that gave me this answer. And it wasn't something that I thought I really needed at the time, but it was so persistent for me. And what I received is that our souls all experience everything. And it was the only way that I could come to terms. And actually, after the first journey that I did, my guide, she had recommended reading Many Lives, Many Masters by Brian Weiss. And I did. And I read the whole thing the next day and I was in tears because I had literally word for word around that topic said the same thing as the masters that he records in that book. And so anyway, that was a bit of context, but I'm curious like how you reconcile everything like I just talked about.
Yeah, for me, and I think this is something that I still work through myself, and I'm very honest with that. There is a part in the book where I talk about just being angry one day. It was right after the horrible, horrible things that happened in Israel and Palestine, and watching that unfold, and then seeing, where else in the world those things were happening, right? Because we put a microscope on one, then we get a microscope on all the other things too. And for me, you know, when those actions happen, it's not for me to condemn people that do awful things. That's not my job. The best way that I've been able to kind of work through it myself is that those people are disconnected. I don't believe in a source of evil. I believe you're either just connected or you're not. And I believe that those people are disconnected because if we're connected into that greater creative source, we don't want to harm people. And I think that that's pretty easy to understand. I think, you know, those people that are doing those things, there's wounding there, there's all kinds of stuff, but it's not for me to break down the psychology of why they're doing what they're doing. That's way out of my pay grade. The souls that I've connected with that share about suffering that happens is that suffering is a part of this human experience. And if we can help relieve someone's suffering, then we should.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes we think as humans, well, I can't fix the problem, so why even bother? But I think that even just those micro things that we can do, at least for me, make me feel like, you know, okay, I'm doing something. I think when we don't do anything and we just watch it, we feel completely powerless. For example, right now we're at a time where, you know, food benefits in our country are about to run out for a lot of people. And I don't dive into politics. Again, it's above my pay grade. And I have my own kind of thoughts about that, but that's, you know, neither here nor there. And the world does not need my opinion thrown into things. There's enough of that already on social media.
It certainly is,
But, you know, my friends and I, we were talking about having a party for my book. So I've got the book coming out. We're celebrating that. I said, you know, I think what would be more meaningful for me, because this book is about service and taking care of people, I would love it if we all got together. We went to the grocery store, we loaded up on a bunch of groceries, and we make a donation to the food bank. And that's how we celebrate this book. And while, you know, someone might hear that and be like, okay, great, or whatever, you know, I think think about if we all just did things like that, those times where we were feeling powerless. I don't have an answer for why horrible things happen in the world.
Yeah.
I don't pretend to, and I'm not carrying the burden of feeling like I need to have that answer. There are people that eloquate it like Many Lives, Many Masters. That book just puts all of that together in such a beautiful way. But what I can do is when I see those things happening, I can go help someone. I can go do something for someone. And that makes me feel really good.
I think for all of us, it's ultimately about doing our part. And really, that's what this whole show is about. That's why I started this. You know, I did the money making thing. You know, I built and sold 2 businesses. And my goal with this show is to be able to have it be something of service. You know, when I was selling coaching, first I had a fitness studio for women. I sold it 10 years ago, and then I was business coaching forever. And so, you know, as much as I love people, those were very transactional relationships, right? It's like you pay me and I give you this. And so my goal is to monetize this show in ways that don't require that, to be able to share conversations with amazing people like you, free for people to be able to learn and to grow from. And then any, you know, revenue that this can create goes back into humanity and goes back into really bettering the lives of people. And it's like, you know, I was talking to my boyfriend last night and he's like, why are you stressing out about this so much? He's like, you're not even like trying to turn it into a business. I'm like, no, but it has to be successful because it has to reach all these people that need to hear these conversations, and it has to make money so that I can give it to people. And like, you know, so anyway.
I think you bring up a really good point around just making money. And I think that there is this really weird disconnect. I think making money is spiritual.
Yes, totally.
I think it's a very spiritual thing that we can do. It's what we decide to then do with it.
Of course. Yeah.
And how we show up and serve with it. And I love that you have come to a place in your life where, and your journey has been so blessed that now you're at this place where, okay, I did the hustle. I did all of that. Got the battle scars to prove it. Now I get to do this really cool new creative project that serves in a different way. And I think it's so cool that you as a human are kind of choosing that now. Like, and you know, you're in that place that you can make that choice. And I think that's all any of us can do is that if we're in a position, and I think that's one of the most spiritual things that we can do, is that if we're in a position to help someone, just help them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that doesn't have to always be money. That can just be, that can just be giving someone a smile, buying them a coffee, whatever you got to do. But I think that is what makes us spiritual, is that when we see that humanity in other people and we see that spirit in other people, and I think that's what makes us truly spiritual.
Yeah, so much wisdom and all of that. I love all of that. I could talk to you for hours, but I won't take up all of your time. But I did want to ask you, like, I'm curious, kind of the first thing that comes to mind. What's the most unbelievable or maybe remarkable thing that has ever happened to you spiritually?
Oh my God, just one thing?
I mean, you can share a few, whatever comes to mind.
Yeah, I think for me, the thing that I was actually thinking about this morning when I was working out, I think for me, what has been the most kind of remarkable spiritual thing was being able to deliver messages to people from their departed loved ones and provide people with that healing, and seeing people find that relief instantly, find that sense of like relaxation and calm. I think for me, that's been the greatest gift. I think our spiritual gifts, they're for us first and foremost, and we're just meant to give from the overflow. And my own journey, I think I see things all the time for myself, but I think for me, it's being able to take some of that and give that to someone else. That's been the most profound thing that I've seen.
Yeah. And, you've chosen to really share your gifts in pretty powerful ways, right? Like you have fairly large social media platforms. You've put all of this into a book. You're doing these tours, you're doing interviews like this, and so I think it says a lot about who you are, that you're willing to put it all out there in such open and generous ways, for sure. So
thank you.
Yeah. I have one final question for you. And this is a big one, but I like to ask to people, what is the one thing that you want people to know based on all of the work that you've done?
Oh, that they are worthy beyond comprehension, that joy and abundance are things that we are entitled to. It's our inherent nature to be joyful and abundant. And there is nothing that we have to do to be proven worthy of that. We're worthy of those things simply just because we exist. They are our birthright.
I love it. I love it. And I think a lot of people maybe hear it, but they don't necessarily believe it for themselves. So thank you for giving that final confirmation and affirmation about all of it. Okay. Tell us where people can find you, because you're constantly sharing wisdom on social media, but tell us all of the things.
Yeah, you can find me at travisholp.com or on Instagram at Travis Warrior Unicorn, and Travis Warrior Unicorn on TikTok as well.
I love it. I love it. And so, as I mentioned, you have this fantastic book, Are You There, Spirit? It's Me, Travis, is available now. And I highly, highly recommend everyone who listens to this go and read it, because you are going to learn so much more about Travis's journey and just some of these big spiritual lessons that we've talked about during this interview, and so much more. I want to just say, like, speaking of synchronicities in the world, I know you already know this, but I want to tell people who are listening, it's like, found you on my Instagram. I felt just this safety energy from you. I can't really explain it in any other way. And then we reach out to you within like a few minutes. You confirmed that you wanted to do this interview. And I was like, oh my gosh, really? And then, I get your book in my mailbox a couple of days later, because your team is super fast. I read your book. As soon as I'm done reading it, your Instagram pops up, and I had already seen that you were on a tour, but for whatever reason, like, I just didn't see the fact that you were going to be in Greenville, South Carolina. I live in Asheville, North Carolina. It's about an hour away the day that we scheduled this interview. So I'm coming to your show tonight, and I get to meet you, and I'm just so excited. And I feel like that really is a great way to close the show, especially around so much conversation with synchronicities and all of that.
Well, Nicole, it's been an honor and a pleasure for being here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And I can't wait to meet you later.